This is an information session about the Ulster-Scots Agency's dance tuition programme for 2021-22. Most important aspect of the information session is to let you know that the deadline for receipt of applications is 5 p.m. on Wednesday the 19th of May 2021. Incomplete or late applications will be rejected, so don't miss the deadline, 5 p.m. Wednesday 19th of May. This year, the main aspect of any change is that the application process is entirely online. So with that in mind, it's vitally important that the email address you use for the project application is a valid one and that you check it regularly, as this will be the main contact point for your application. This is where the agency will go to first, and if you don't respond to emails, it's likely that your application will be rejected. A competitive programme. Teams usually are subscribed, and as usual, they'll use a scoring matrix based on your answers to questions 1, 2, and 3 on the application form, along with your budget and the important element of your scheme of work prepared by your tutors. So, the application form itself. When you register with the agency through their website, you're sent the details, you're sent guidelines, a copy of the timetable for the programme, and also a scheme of work. You log into the system and you start filling in the form. Part 1 of the form asks for organisation details, so it's the basic info about your organisation. So what's the name of the group, what council area and parliamentary constituency are you in? These are available as pull down menus, so you just select. So if you're in Lisburn, you select Lisburn. If you're in Belfast, you select Belfast. If you're in Omagh, you select Fermanagh and Omagh District Council. Goes on like that. It then asks, has your group ever had a previous name? If you have, you tick yes and you tell them what the previous name was. If no, you tick no and move on to the next question. And it'll ask you around previous funding. Have you had any previous funding from the Ulster-Scots Agency? So if you've had a tuition project before, you can tell them about that. Or if you've been successful under the recent COVID grants, you can tell them about that. You're then asked to list the main officers of the organisation, so your treasurer, your chair, all those types of things. And you're also asked to list a project manager, and this is the person responsible for your application and all correspondence with the agency. The project manager doesn't have to hold another role in the organisation. You then move on to part 2, which is about your project. And here it asks you about what is the venue where the tuition project will take place, including address and postcode. It asks you then about whether it's a Strand 1 or a Strand 2 project, Strand 2 being the one where your students will get an accreditation. There's a requirement within the programme for a minimum of 10 students per tutor for dance. And you can have up to 2 tutors per programme. Your tutors need to have at least 3 years teaching experience, and you need to indicate in describing your tutors how they got this experience. The tutors cannot be closely related to anyone who signs the application. So if it's brother, sister, father, mother, son or daughter, they'll have to step aside from signing the applications. The tutor can be an officer of the organisation who are applying, but they can't be the project manager, they can't be the treasurer, or they can't be one of the signatories to the application form. Other details then of your tuition. So it asks about the type of dance. Is it Highland dance or is it Scottish country dance? It asks about the numbers taking part, and this is your anticipated number. So if you think there's going to be 25 taking part, you put that down. If you think there's only going to be 15, you put that down. And the only place that really has a bearing is in terms of the number of tutors you're going to have. For example, if you think you're only going to have 15 students taking part, then you can only have 1 tutor. You need then to give them the details of the start date and the end date for the programme. You can't start your tuition project before the 14th of June, and it must be complete by the 30th of April in 2022. And you'll notice that instead of it being within a calendar year this year, the agency are allowed to be carried over into next year, so that you have a good chance of completing the project. Remember to, again, tutors can be officers of the organisation, but they can't be the project manager or the treasurer or a signatory to the application form. Competitive scoring is based on questions 1, 2 and 3 in the application form, and they're very much shaped by the strategic aims of the programme. So the agency always talk about how does your project inspire, empower or engage, and if you read your guidelines that are downloaded with the programme, they'll have these details within them. There's nothing new here. It has been there for a number of years, so if you look back over previous applications, you should be able to see the same strategic aims for the program. And basically here you're trying to sell it to them how what you're doing is going to get people to engage with Ulster-Scots culture. So straight to question 1 then. Question 1 asks you to tell what has your organisation done in the last 3 years to promote Ulster-Scots in your area, and how will this project further sustain and develop the Ulster-Scots culture and identity in your community? The answer can be up to a maximum of 200 words, but don't feel you have to write 200 words, but equally don't think you'll get away with 30. We suggest often to groups that what you should do is look to perhaps use bullet points, get across your main points in a series of bullet points down on the application form, rather than necessarily having to write long flowery sentences that you're making up loads of words just to say what you could say. If you can say it in 100 words, say it in 100 words. But you're trying to sell your project to the assessment officers. Don't think you get away with just saying, well, we've done bits and pieces over the last 3 years. That won't work. But what you are trying to tell them is you're telling them about the ethos of your organization. So if you're a Highland dance group, you're obviously involved in promoting Ulster-Scots culture, the repertoire, the type of dancing that you're doing, the reels and the jigs or whatever, they're all part of this. So that's part of your repertoire. It's part of the cultural identity. Talk about any performances or showcases you've done over the last few years, any festivals you've taken part in. Did you perhaps go along and dance at a Burns event in the last number of years? Those are all things that show what you have been doing. Ways in which you're further sustaining and developing is you're providing opportunities for people to engage with the culture. The quality of the tuition that you provide will also help to improve culture and identity. And if this is if this is a tuition project that's been run for a number of years, you're building on the existing work of the previous years. That's what you're doing. That's how you're embedding this within your community. Question 2. Ask you to tell them how you have established there's a need for the project and why your group is best placed to address the need. You can talk up the fact that there's a local demand. You've been running this class and people are still coming forward saying, oh, we are really looking forward to getting our young people involved with this. So talk up the local demand. If there's no one else in your area, you're the only group delivering this within your area, tell them that too. And they do look at the geographic spread of these projects across the country. But if you're delivering a project in an area and there's a demand for it, it's not an issue. Talk up any previous successes. Have you delivered this tuition program before? How many people have gone through it? Talk about that. And if you're in a place where there's a large Ulster-Scots population or there's definitely a demand for Ulster-Scots stuff, then tell them that too. You're basically telling them here, people want to do this, and this is why we're able to deliver it for them. Question 3 asks you how you propose to deliver your project, how the project will provide appropriate and good quality learning opportunities, and what you hope to achieve at the end of the project. This one, they want slightly more detail, so it's a maximum of 300 words. So you're basically outlining here how your program is running, when and where the class is going to be. What about your scheme of work and your lesson plans? Have they been thought out? Are they well planned? You're showing them that you're thinking about how people are going to engage with the program and how it's going to make a difference to them. You're showing them achievable learning outcomes in the time frame available. Bear in mind that the maximum this project can run for is 30 weeks. How much can you possibly teach someone from a beginner over a 30-week period, you're probably not going to turn them into an expert. So be careful in terms of saying, this is the project, this is what we're going to do. Does your scheme of work and your lesson plan show an achievable and a realistic learning outcome in the time frame you have available to you? Does your lesson plan and your scheme of work show a differentiation between learners of different skills? You know, if you have beginners coming in, what are they going to be doing over the period of 30 weeks? It's probably going to be different from what those people who've been dancing for 5 years are going to be doing over the 30 weeks. Show progression routes. How are you going to work out how good someone is and how they can move on to the next level? You can also talk too about how long, if this is an ongoing project, if your project has been run for a number of years, talk about the governance of your group, how your group is able to deliver this, how they've delivered before. You know, your group is a well-run group, you've run a project like this before, you're confident that you can handle the money and deliver the project. If you're talking to about increased numbers, so you maybe started a number of years ago and you started off with 10 people taking part and now you have 30 taking part, and you have people wanting to come along to take part again, you know, increased numbers. So you're showing that there's progression here and that there's growth. The fact that you're offering a dance project like this, is this showing an increased awareness of Ulster-Scots dance traditions? You know, if you've been running this for a number of years, yes, definitely it is. One of the other aspects too is that those people taking part in the class, they're going to be given more confidence, that they're going to be pleased with the skills they're developing, and they're going to have an opportunity to take part in showcases within their local community, and maybe that's going to then lead on to them getting involved in more wider community events. These are all things that you want to talk up in your application. Next set of questions are sort of more general ones. Question 4, is the tuition project open to the whole community? It's a yes or no answer. Obviously you're going to say yes. The program has to be open for anybody to take part in. You can't say, oh no, it's only open to, you know, certain sections of the community. It has to be open to all. Anybody who wants to take part in it can take part on the same basis as everybody else. How will the group advertise the project within the community? Again, you're given a series of tick boxes here. Pick the ones that you're going to use. So if you're going to use Facebook, Twitter, leaflets in your local church, tick all those boxes. You know, don't say you're going to put an advert in the local newspaper or in the Belfast Telegraph if that's not something you're going to do, because you're going to be asked in the future to prove what publicity activities you undertook and to prove that you've done them. So people are going to want to see this. One of the key elements here, make sure that the Ulster-Scots agency are properly credited for the funding support given to you through the tuition project. The agency reserve the right to withhold 15% of the grant if their contribution is not suitably acknowledged in the promotional materials you produce. So ask them to send you their logo, copy it, put it on all your material. That's the easy way. Put a post up on Facebook, make sure the agency logo's on that. And also within text, you're thanking the agency for the support that has made the tuition project possible. And if you need any more information on that, look through the guidelines to sections 18 and 19 and you'll get the information there. Question 6 asks about other funding. Has your group sourced or do you intend to seek any other funding for the tuition project? And please list all funding applied for or which you plan to apply for. You're asked here to give them an answer in a maximum of 200 words. You know, it may be that you're approaching your local council for support to help the project happen. Let them know that that's the case. If you're not applying for funding for anywhere else, then tell them that. If you're making up the shortfall between the funding that the agency will give you for the project, and bear in mind they only fund up to a maximum of 75% of the eligible costs of the project, where are you getting the other 25% from? And if it's coming from contributions and things like that within the group, make sure you write that in. Just tell them, well, the participants are going to pay a fee each week that'll go towards making up the shortfall. You need to be aware here that if that's your plan, and you know, or if you have approached another funder and another funder has said, okay, you're £1,000 short, we'll give you the £1,000. If you don't declare that and the agency find out about it, they could withdraw the funding. You know, it's not going to prevent the project happening, having another funder coming in, but just make sure you let them know. Okay, Moving on to part 3 of the application form, and this is where you start dealing with your tutors. So they ask you for each tutor who's delivering in the project to identify the tutor and their overall aims for the tuition project. Basically here you're saying who's your tutor going to be, what experience they have of teaching people to dance. Again, maximum 200 words. You're going to, you can get away here again with using bullet points. And at this stage in the application, you also have to upload a copy of the timetable. So on this, you're basically going to tell them the dates and times of all your sessions over the 30 weeks or whatever it is of your program. And you have to upload a scheme of work for each tutor, and in that scheme of work they're going to say week 1 we're going to do X, Y, and Z, and if you have different grades of learners within it, so you have beginners and more experienced dancers, that scheme of work is going to say what the beginners are going to be doing as well as what the more experienced dancers are going to be doing. Remember that the tuition can run any time between the 14th of June this year and the 30th of April next year. When you're putting your timetable in, be sure about your dates as much as you possibly can be. It's really important to note that any changes to the dates have to be agreed with the agency in advance. And we know that occasions things will happen in a community that means something can't take place as planned, but you need to let them know prior to that. And remember that if your 30 weeks run right up to the 30th of April 2022, you can't go past that date to fill in any missing weeks. So you would have to reschedule them at some other time to make sure that you get your full 30 weeks. And any weeks that you don't run, you'll lose the funding for those weeks. The scheme of work template comes out with the application pack, and this should demonstrate the weekly learning outcomes for the participants. These 2 forms are uploaded as you go through the application form. And one of the things you'll notice about this online application form this time, you can't skip forward pages to fill in bits that are easier and come back. It only allows you to move on page by page when you've completed all the questions on that page. So at this stage, unless you upload the timetable and the scheme of work, it will not let you progress to the next section of the application. Part 4 is looking at income and the expenditure associated with the project. And the first bit is it asks you to list all the expenditure. So you're basically putting in here all the expenditure associated with it. You have to show the breakdown of the costs, including your tutors and your hall rental. So you're basically saying we're going to have, a tutor who's going to do 4 hours a week at £25 an hour. Our hall rental is £30 a week. You're listing all these as separate lines on the budget sheet. If you're doing a Strand 2 project, you're also going to put in there about the accreditation costs. So you need to source what they are and include them as part of the application. If for example, you have hall rental, but the hall that you use is giving you that as an in-kind contribution to help reduce your overall cost, you have to include the cost of the hall rental in the expenditure, even though someone else is the hall is giving you that as an in-kind. You still have to put it in as an expenditure associated with it. This year they have introduced a thing whereby if you want to deliver the program remotely using Zoom or Teams or some sort of other online platform, if there's a license cost associated with that, you can include the cost of that license up to a maximum of £130 in your application, and they will approve that cost. The next element you reach on the application form is it asks what currency are you applying in. So groups in Northern Ireland are obviously going to apply in pounds sterling. Groups in the Republic of Ireland are going to apply in euros. At the bottom of the expenditure element, you should have a total cost or total expenditure for the project. Income, and specify any sources of proposed income. So if you are asking the group participants to pay money in, whether it's on a weekly basis or across the life of the project, at the start of the project, it's going to cost so much, you have to put that in. So if you have 10 people contributing, 50 quid each, or 20 people contributing 50 quid towards the cost of the project, and that gives you £1,000 to cover the shortfall. That's where that goes in. If it's your group is making a contribution through their own fundraising, again, it goes in there. And if you have an in-kind contribution, so for example, I talked about, a hall rental or £30 a week for 30 weeks is £900, but the hall are actually allowing you to have that for nothing. You include it again here as income, and it goes off the overall cost of the project. At the end of that sheet, you should have a total income for the project, and then the difference is you're then asking for here's the expenditure, here's the income, this is what we're seeking from the agency, the total amount of the grant that you're looking for. And remember, they'll only give you up to 75% of that grant. The grant is up to 75% of the total cost. And here's some sort of eligible costs, just to give you an example. So you can apply for a maximum of 30 weeks tuition between the 14th of June of this year and the 30th of April next year. You're allowed a maximum of 2 tutors with a minimum of 10 participants per tutor in each class. You're allowed to claim for travel. So if it's mileage within Northern Ireland and the Republic, it's 45 pence per mile. If you have to bring over examiners, or perhaps you're bringing over a tutor for specific things to prepare for exams or events, around the accreditation, you can claim all receipted economy, air and sea travel. This must be claimed by the group, so the tutor can't claim for this on their own. It has to be the group claiming for it, and you can include reimbursement on provision of paid invoices. You can claim for a maximum of 4 hours tuition per week. The maximum tutor rates are calculated at £25 per hour for qualified tutors. Hall rental is kept at a maximum of £30 per week. For an online license to deliver tuition remotely, you can claim up to a maximum of £130. And if you're doing Strand 2 dance project, you can claim for up to 30 accreditations, so long as they are completed before the 30th of April 2022. An example of a cost on a dance project, this would be a Strand 1 project with no accreditation. So your dance tutor, £25 per hour by 4 weeks by 30 weeks gives you a total cost of £3,000. Travel gives you £162 in this example. Hall rental is £900 in this example. And we've included an online license for Zoom here at £130, giving you a total cost for the project of £4,192. And the maximum grant that you would get for the Ulster-Scots agency to cover that is £3,144. So that would leave you with a shortfall of £1,048, which you would have to make up from your various things. But if you had, for example, your hall rental was an in-kind contribution and that was £900, it would mean you would have to find another roughly £150 to make up the overall shortfall. Worked example on Dance Strand 2, all the same costs as the previous one, only this time we've added in UK Dance Alliance accreditation fees by 30 participants is about £442. And again, you'll see there the total cost 4,364, and the maximum grant you would get from the agency towards that would be 3,475. And that just sort of gives you an example of, remember, you have 25% of the project defined. If you're claiming in euros for those groups in the Republic of Ireland, the agency have taken the decision that they're going to set the exchange rate for projects applying in euros as each euro is worth 87 pence. So you've completed all the scoring questions, you've put in all the information about your group, you've put in stuff about your tutors, you've put in your schemes of work and your supporting documents around that, you've put in your budget, and now you get to part 5, and this is where you have to upload your supporting documents. So instead of sending them in after you get your letter of offer, now they have to go in with the application. These must be uploaded with your application. So you have to include a current original bank statement, no more than 2 months old, or a bank printout. So you can go, if you can get into a bank and get them to print out the details of your account, do that. Or if you use online banking, you can print out the statement from your online banking and have any of those documents then signed by one of the authorised officers listed in your application. If you're lucky enough to have more than £1,000 in your bank account, perhaps you've been fundraising because you need new costumes, or your dance group are going away and we're planning to go to an event, and you've been fundraising for that. Any amount of money over £1,000 in your account, you have to provide a document which details what your financial commitments are. So basically you're saying, oh, yes, we have £1,200 in the account. That's all of the members of the group have been saving up because we need new costumes. The £1,200 is going to pay for our new costumes. That's all it needs. Short document, don't need to go into great detail, but you just need to tell them why there's more there than £1,000 and what you plan to do with it. You need to also include your governing document, so your constitution, signed and dated by the current chairperson. And also then finally on this one, the supporting documents, a copy of your most recent annual accounts, signed and dated in accordance with your constitution. Whatever your constitution says about how your accounts are going to be produced, that's how the accounts that you have must be produced. Once you've done that, you move on to the next page, and that's part 6, the declaration. And basically this is all the legal things you're starting to tick to let them know that yes, we agree to this, yes, we agree to this. So you're giving the agency permission to discuss your proposals with other funders. So for example, if you say, yes, we have applied to Newry and Mourne District Council for £1,000 towards our tuition project, the agency will contact them and say, have they applied for this? It's just to make sure there's things like there's no double funding. You're also giving them permission, saying to them you have no objections to them allowing someone external to the Ulster-Scots agency to be involved in the appraisal or evaluation process, because they might need to bring in extra people to assess the applications to get through them. You're saying that that you have to maintain accurate financial records, and there may be audit at some point in the future. You're confirming that you're aware that you must tell the agency about any changes to the proposed project immediately, so that they're aware of it. So for example, what has happened in the past, it may be that dates can't happen because of certain times. You have to let them know that in advance. The tutor you put in, say we're going to use Darcy Bustle, for example, to deliver some of this tuition project, and then Darcy breaks her legs and can't take part, and you need to replace her with someone else. You need to let them know up front as quickly as you know that there's a change, so that they can approve the changes. You're also confirming that you have all the necessary safeguarding policies and procedures in place, and that you're complying with all relevant statutory requirements, for example, around disability access. And we'll touch on safeguarding a bit later on here as well. You're also ticking a box to say that you're aware that you've read the fraud warning. The agency are making available to you public money, and with all these things, they're going to expect you to be scrupulously honest with it. If they discover that you've provided false invoices, or you've put in invoices from someone who didn't actually do the work, then there's a very real danger that if they find that out, they will prosecute you. They'll recover the money and they'll seek to prosecute you and prevent you getting funding again from anywhere else. So you need to be aware of that. Making false statements could result in prosecution. And also they're at this stage, they're making you aware that just because you've submitted the application doesn't mean there's a commitment on their part to provide financial support until such times as a letter of offer has been sent and returned and all the paperwork that they need sent to them. They're under no obligation to release the money to you. So once they issue a letter of offer, it's in your interest to get that filled in and back to them as soon as you can. We move more and more online in terms of how we make payments and how we, our invoices come in and all the rest of it. this is just a sort of reminder that there are people out there who, as we have moved more and more online, there seems to be more and more of them out there trying to find ways to part us from our cash. And just making you aware, you need to be careful when you're making online payments. People can pretend to be someone you trust just to get the money out of you. So before you make the payment, double check all the details to make sure you're paying the right person and that, you know, the details you have there are genuine. Don't rely on an email, a text message, or someone ringing you tell you, you know, double check. One of the things we would suggest to you is if somebody sends you an invoice and on that invoice are their bank's details and you've never actually paid them before through your bank account, it might be useful to give them a wee ring and say to them, listen, I just want to check that these details are right. Is this your sort code? Is this your bank account number? So that you make sure you pay the right person, because if you pay the wrong person, there's a very real danger that, you know, you'll never see the money again. Once you get through that, then you've got part 7 of the application form, which is around safeguarding. And anybody who's done a tuition project in the recent past will be aware that safeguarding has become a much bigger issue. When the agency get back to carrying out verification visits of projects, it's very likely that one of the first things they will do when they come through the door to check how your project is running is ask to see your safeguarding policy. It has been one of their key things. If you're successful and you get a letter of offer for your project, you must complete a safeguarding checklist. You can download the templates for them on the Ulster-Scots agency website, and depending on which jurisdiction you are, so if you're in Northern Ireland, you should download the Northern Ireland safeguarding checklist. If you're in the Republic of Ireland, you should use the Child Protection and Welfare Policy checklist. And these is basically lists that you go down to say, yes, I have this, yes, our policy covers this. And it's all about making sure that you're aware of what's in your safeguarding policy and that you're implementing those things. The agency will expect the people attending your tuition project to be aware of where your safeguarding policy is. So one of the things you should do is pin it up in the notice board near the door as soon as you come in, and on the first night tell everybody, this is our safeguarding policy. If you ever need to know anything about how seriously we take safeguarding, there's a policy, you're free to read it. It's there, and it's worth bearing that in mind. I know that was quite a quick run through of the whole thing. You'll see when you go online to start to filling in the application just where those various bits and pieces come to. As with any of these programs and projects and, you know, funding applications, if you have any queries about the program or you need any assistance in terms of a bit of guidance around filling in the application form, you can contact us here at the Ulster-Scots Community Network. You can speak to Alan McCormick, Matthew Warwick, or David Gilliland. That's the telephone number for us. You'll also find our mobile numbers on the Ulster-Scots Community Network's website, which is www.ulster-scots.com. We're there right through until the deadline, and if you need any help, you can get in touch with us. Okay, hope that's been useful. Thanks very much.